California Democrats are holding a big political convention this weekend, but they better have a lot of security guards on hand because pro-Palestinian protesters are threatening to disrupt the meeting. Coming up, we'll tell you what's going down and why the liberal media does not want to cover the all-out civil war going on within the Democrat Party of California. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and there is an all-out civil war going on within the California Democrat Party. And of course, their friends in the liberal media, they're covering it up. They do not want to cover what's going on, but we're seeing little inklings of it across the country. It all boils down to the conflict in the Middle East with a good chunk of the Democrat base siding with Hamas and the Palestinians and saying some of the most horrifically anti-Semitic things about the state of Israel and Jews. This is sadly the truth of the Democrat Party having this faction, a very hate-filled faction within its ranks. And yet, if the same were true of the Republican Party, you know there would be national news coverage of it 24/7. But here you've got Democrats with their own hate crime, hate faction problem. It is spilling over, though. This week, there was a conflict at the Democrat National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C. And I had to watch this and wonder, hey, is this not the same or worse than January 6th? So there were members of Congress meeting in the Democrat National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C. And the headquarters literally are 2 blocks away from the Capitol. Again, members of Congress inside this building, Capitol police officers patrol and cover this area along with metropolitan police units. Well, pro-Palestinian Democrat activists decided to riot. And it's not a protest, okay? This is not a peaceful protest, even though NBC is going to try to describe it that way. You can see the images for yourself. This was a full-on violent altercation with members of Congress trapped inside the DNC. Watch this coverage.
This morning, tensions over the Israel-Hamas war boiling over into clashes. Pro-Palestinian protesters calling for a ceasefire, clashing with police in front of the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C.
And by the way, you see the pictures of these people pushing and assaulting, really. If you touch an officer, physically touch an officer, that's an assault. You see them literally jostling back and forth with police officers. But how does NBC describe it?
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Videos posted to social media show protesters standing with their arms interlocked, blocking the DNC door.
Protesters standing with their arms interlocked, blocking DNC doors? If that's all it was, then it's a protest, okay? You saw the images. There were violent confrontations, people pushing back and forth. But even the Metropolitan Police Department, which is run by a Democrat mayor in a Democrat city with a Democrat city council, they came out and said that there was violence. The whole entire confrontation was violent.
As they get into a shoving match with police. Dozens of Democratic politicians, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, were inside the building. Capitol Police say about 150 people gathered were illegally and violently protesting, which resulted in 6 officers being treated for injuries, including minor cuts, pepper spray, and being punched.
Wait, so we have 6 officers who were injured. I remember January 6th in the media coverage. There was wall-to-wall, coverage of all the injuries of officers there. It's a mention in this report. Again, he said that they were interlocking their arms and standing in front of the building. No, they were all out rioting, and they got physical, and at least six officers had to be treated for injuries. Most people who are assaulted probably don't say, okay, I've got to go seek treatment, but they were still violently assaulted, which is a crime. I wonder how many of these left-wing nutbags were actually prosecuted.
Say at least 100 demonstrators suffered injuries after they were pepper sprayed and pushed by police.
And we came here tonight to say, as Democrats, you need to listen to what the Democratic base is demanding.
Oh, listen to that. What the Democratic base is demanding. You heard it right there. You, as Democratic legislators, need to listen to what the Democrat base is demanding. She's actually speaking the truth right there. They are the Democrat base.
Democrats are demanding a ceasefire.
War protests erupting across the country, from San Francisco to New York City, where demonstrators at Columbia University criticized the school over its decision to suspend 2 pro-Palestinian student groups through the end of the semester. Back at the DNC headquarters here, just 1 arrest. But meanwhile, the Biden administration has been...
Boy, he quickly went through that. He just said just 1 arrest. Wait. 6 officers were violently attacked to the point where they needed medical treatment. You know, hundreds of other officers were probably physically assaulted multiple times. And yet only 1 arrest? I wonder what terrible thing that person did. Maybe they used the wrong personal pronoun. So that's what happened in the DNC. What's happening here in California, as I mentioned, Politico has an interesting story out today. Tensions over Israel-Hamas war threaten to engulf California Democrat convention. Again, you're going to see at this convention this weekend where they're meeting to do endorsements and set their strategy for 2024. You're going to see physical altercations. That is my prediction. You are going to see the base of the Democrat Party show up and demonstrate their hate-filled message of anti-Semitism. Oh, sure, they're going to say they're here just to talk about a ceasefire. What they're saying is Israel can be attacked by terrorists, but Israel is not allowed to pursue those terrorists and hold them accountable. We need a ceasefire. In other words, they're standing with Hamas. They are literally trying to say, hey, let's be part of the human shields for Hamas. Let's force Democrats in America to tell this administration to tell the Israelis that they're not allowed to defend themselves. Hopefully, God willing, the Israelis will ignore that when Biden buckles. And I predict he will, actually, because this is not going away for the Democrats. It's getting louder and louder and louder. And I hope that Jewish Americans who have been voting Democrat, Jewish Californians who've been voting Democrat, I hope you're listening intently to the real message that's being sent here. That you basically are defenseless. You are to be defenseless. You are to be stripped of your right of self-defense. That's what they're demanding here. Now, they've also driven a narrative that somehow the Israelis are occupiers and evildoers and guilty of genocide and an apartheid government. Again, absolute attacks against Israel driven by, at the very least, misinformation. And I would say animus, hate, and intention regarding the fact that they're Jewish. What's interesting is there's a member of the assembly, Alex Lee, who shows his ignorance. You and I know that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is mainly driven by people who are siding with Palestine and Hamas because they don't like Israel. They hate Israel. They think Israel's evil. I would say that the kindest way to describe that is that they're ignorant. Probably the more likely way to describe that is that they're ignorant and hate-filled. But Alex Lee demonstrates his utter dishonesty and ignorance when he says the divide on this issue is really fundamental. Okay, that part he gets right. There's a fundamental divide. There are people who are pro-Hamas and people who are standing for legitimate right to protect yourself from terrorism. Alex Lee says, it's about the prioritization of tax dollars. Dude, this is not about a cost-benefit analysis. This is not about, we need to do a program audit, a program evaluation, a benchmark study. What is this nonsense? This is a dispute about prioritization of tax dollars. You idiot. Absolute idiot. The philosophy of war and the military-industrial complex. Oh God. I would have at least respected him if he would have said, yeah, this is about Yeah, the Israelis being genocidal lunatics attacking the poor, defenseless Palestinians. He'd be wrong, but at least he would be, accurately describing the dispute here. But no, this guy he's a moron. He's a complete moron. Prioritization of tax dollars. We need a GAO audit. We need to have an independent audit, a study committee. The philosophy of war. No one's sitting around their kitchen table saying, gee, can we talk Palestine and Israel? Yeah, talk about a really engaging philosophy of war discussion. No. This is emotionally charged. There are tinges of anti-Semitism here, of racism. I will say that there's probably some Islamophobia. But it fundamentally is a question of, do people have a right to defend themselves? And the Israelis were attacked viciously by terrorists, and they have a right to defend themselves. That's my opinion. Others feel that that's not a right, that they should basically just suck it up, grin and bear it, and which ultimately means terrorism works, and they will continue their terrorist attacks. Now, all of this is set against a bubbling problem on California campuses. And remember, California is supposed to be the woke state, right? The blue state, woke. So woke. They're so woke. Well, they are pretty hate-filled on California university and college campuses. We do know that a lot of these pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas factions are demonstrating on college campuses. We do know that that's the hotbed of their center of gravity, really. That's where a lot of these groups operate. And they're out there to try to convert kids into thinking that somehow the Palestinians have done no wrong here, and Hamas is an angelic group. They also think Iran is a pinnacle of human rights, I'm sure. Anyway, so we do know that there are various hate crimes going on college campuses in California. A lot of concerns about violence on our college campuses. Now, Gavin Newsom has never, ever passed up an opportunity to grandstand on hate crimes. I mean, this guy literally will show up and do a press conference if someone even looks the wrong way at someone else who's brown or transgender or part of the protected class of folks that the Democrats always like to define. He even sets up a hate hotline in the state of California. I mean, the most worthless hotline I've seen ever set up since Miss Cleo was taking calls in the 1980s. So Newsom has never turned down an opportunity to grandstand on hate, on racism, on any sort of discrimination. But with all of this stuff going on that's anti-Semitic, what does he do? He writes a letter. He writes a letter to California University administrators saying that now is a time to cultivate spaces for affinity and dialogue. Okay. You do realize that the anti-Semitism that we're seeing on these college campuses is grotesque. The problem is not people are going out and attacking Muslims on college campuses. That's not happening, okay? I'd love to see evidence of that. I'm open-minded. No, we're seeing the most vicious and vile commentary against Jews. Anyone who stands up for Israel, the posters get ripped down. Other posters get put up saying that the Palestinians are martyrs, Hamas are martyrs. We've seen these reports across the country, and particularly here in California. Newsom says that, quote, students have been physically assaulted for voicing support for Israel. Okay, that's correct. There have been physical assaults against people because they support Israel. We have yet to see any physical assaults against people supporting Palestine. I'm sure Newsom, if it were true, would have put that in his letter. He throws this line away, targeted because of a Jewish, Arab, or Muslim identity. Again, we're not seeing that. Again, I'm open to seeing the evidence to the contrary, but I'm just reporting on what we physically have seen and can verify. But Newsom, who does press conferences at a drop of a hat and posts fancy produced videos, he writes a discreet letter. I mean, what? You're going to send a Post-it note? Please do something. And of course, the universities aren't doing anything at all. Here's the very next day. UC Regents tackle free speech safety concerns amid Israel-Palestine conflict. Look how Cal Matters sanitizes that that headline. There's no headline like "Wave of Anti-Semitism in California Democrat-run universities." No, none of that. What's the response? We're going to spend $7 million. That's the response. $3 million for emergency medical health, $2 million for programs focused on understanding anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Again, they're trying to equate the two as though we have a problem with both. What I'm seeing is a problem with anti-Semitism. $2 million to train our own leadership staff and faculty who are seeking guidance on how to navigate their roles as educators in this space. $7 million on this junk. You don't think that they're already spending 10 times that in each of these categories, or 20 times that? Isn't this the definition of a DEI initiative? Isn't that what most of the expenditures for overhead goes to in college campuses and universities in America, let alone in California? So Newsom writes a discreet letter, doesn't do a press conference because he doesn't want to anger his rabid pro-Hamas Democrat base. And the response is, "You're right. Hate crimes are happening. We shall spend $7 million on consultants to do some PowerPoint slides. That'll teach them." Absolute insanity. Do you understand that this is nothing but a bunch of fraud? That this is nothing but a bunch of gaslighting? The reality is the Democrat base, a good portion of them, not all, but a good faction of them, a significant faction of them, they are anti-Semitic and they're hate-filled. And they're making grotesque statements and making grotesque and inappropriate demands. And no one seems to want to call them out for that hate. No media outlet, no Democrat politician. They want to sweep it under the rug, but they know Jewish donors and Jewish constituents are upset, so they're pushing back and demanding at least something be said. Hence the letter, hence $7 million. I find it to be completely inadequate, and you should too. At Reform California, we are trying to open people's eyes and educate people. We need your help. Click under the comments below and add your comments so that we can goose the algorithm and spread this video. Subscribe to this channel because we post news and information every day. Hit that notification button. And of course, follow us at reformcalifornia.org. Until next time, Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.